Hey guys, what's going on? It is Broken Nose Vlogs here. Now I know I have already made a video on that HP Victus laptop that replaced my MSI, but fun fact, I also used to use a Chromebook. Yes, this is an Asus Chromebook, Intel Celeron dual core. It's kind of been passed around. I've let a couple people use it, which is why it's now covered in stickers, but it finally came back into my hands, and I was just kind of using it for very menial stuff like watching YouTube and things like that on the go, where I didn't want to take something like my Victus or my MSI laptop with me. Well, the battery finally died on it. These little batteries, they're only like 2 cells, and granted, they are about $30 used. I'm not able to find new ones right now. But the bigger problem is this particular Chromebook being made in like 2019 or 2020 actually is sort of no longer getting Chrome OS updates. They are still going to give it security patches, but they're not giving it Chrome OS updates. I looked into that. If I were to enable the security updates for this laptop, or I'm sorry, this Chromebook, it would essentially wipe everything off of it. There would be no Play Store, no installed apps. You would just have a Chrome OS Chromebook with no features, and I guess everything would be done via the cloud or something. But I just felt like it probably wasn't worth, this little $200 laptop going any further than it has already gone. It's, I think it's done. And I decided to shop around and see what $200 would get me in today's day and age. Originally, I was looking at a Chromebook, but I came across something a little bit more interesting. Let me show you. So, for a little bit more than $200, about $230 including tax, I found at my local Micro Center this 17-inch HP laptop. Unlike the Chromebook, this does not run on Chrome OS. This is a Windows 11 laptop. It had some fairly basic features, such as 8 gigabytes of RAM, which we'll talk about that later, and a 6-core 12-thread AMD Ryzen processor. The OS originally was supposed to be Windows 11 S mode, because I'm assuming this is a very lightweight laptop, but there were some surprises when it came to this thing and the actual OS and features that I got. But the big selling point to me is it is a 17.3-inch laptop. That is really big and really nice compared to the 11-inch Chromebook that I was using that I purchased for about the same price. Now, granted, this isn't like a brand new laptop. We're actually going to dive into this a little bit here. This is an HP refurbished laptop. Turns out Micro Center sells certified refurbished HP laptops from HP at their stores. But even further down the line, this was an open box laptop. So somebody had either bought it, didn't like it, returned it, something like that. Everything was included. It had the AC adapter. It was brand new. It had not been set up. Everything was wiped. Originally, this would have been $260 plus tax. I got it for $207 plus tax, or about $230 out the door, which for the screen size alone, in my opinion, is probably worth it. But what kind of features did I get? So as far as the features go, well, we know it's got 8 gigabytes of RAM standard, and it comes with Windows 11, albeit the S edition, and a Ryzen, I'm going to butcher the number, I will put it up. It's a Ryzen 6-core 12-thread CPU that is based on, I believe, Zen 3 architecture, because the RAM is DDR4. So not the fastest or most amazing thing. There's no discrete graphics card. It uses the onboard GPU of the Ryzen processor. I don't think it was too bad of a deal. Was I super excited about 8 gigabytes of RAM? No. Was I super excited about Windows S mode? Not really, but I know how to get out of it. But turns out, upon starting this laptop up with the 8 gigabytes of RAM in it, it actually just came with Windows 11 Home Edition. So I was actually fairly excited that I didn't have to get it out of S mode. But I will tell you, 8 gigabytes of RAM is not a whole lot. Now, when it came to the RAM situation, I did some research and I had looked at a couple different articles, some from HP themselves, that stated anything from this thing has 2 RAM slots to the RAM is soldered onto the board and you can't do anything about it, you're just stuck with 8 gigabytes of RAM. Well, I went ahead and bit the bullet and I cracked it open, and you can see down here, this is the screw layout. The feet hide a few screws, and then there's the screws here. That's why there are these strange looking little furniture feet on here instead. Essentially, once I ripped off the little rubber feet that hid the screws, I didn't bother putting them back on. So after very carefully, and I mean carefully, removing the bottom of the laptop, I was actually fairly surprised to find that yes, this laptop did have 2 RAM slots available, with one that was occupied with 8 gigabytes of DDR4 3200 RAM. Now, I did not have any more 3200 RAM available, but from my MSI laptop, I actually had a 32 gigabyte low latency 2666 kit that I could put inside of here, which I did. Close the thing back up and fired it up and hoped for the best, because I wasn't exactly sure how this computer was going to handle running a different speed RAM. I was hoping that because it was slower, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And after a couple restarts, it looked like it retrained itself and it went ahead and it took the 2666 RAM. And I now had a budget computer with 32 gigabytes of RAM. It turns out it looks like HP actually uses these main boards in a variety of their models. So there were some other things that I discovered when I was in here. Like, there is a spot for a 2.5 SSD, but because this particular model doesn't come with it, they didn't even bother soldering on the connectors or adding a sled into the laptop, so I couldn't use that. And this particular board actually has etched on the main board, it says like 1 DIMM only, or one, essentially it's telling whoever's putting these together, only put 1 stick of RAM in this. This is the cheapo laptop, don't give it any frills, which is fine. I was lucky that I had a backup. The other thing I will say when it comes to disassembling and reassembling this laptop is this was probably one of the most delicate and very kind of nerve-wracking ones that I've ever done. The reason I say that is while the screws are on the bottom, if we open up the laptop here, you will see that the base of the laptop actually meets up in the front or the top of the laptop. So you kind of have to get a pry tool and slowly and gently pry this off. And even with as gentle as I was, over here you can see where I kind of made some hit marks, and I was using plastic spudgers and pry tools. But this laptop is not a very fun laptop to take apart and put back together. So this will probably be the only time that I do that. It only has 1 M.2 slot, which I just realized I forgot to talk about. This came preloaded with a 512 gigabyte M.2, which is totally fine by me. I don't need much more space than that. So if we go ahead and crack the laptop back open, we actually take a look at the screen. The screen is a 17.3 inch HD, which I believe is a 1080p screen. It's just your standard, I think it's IPS LCD. It is limited to 60 hertz, which is fine. I mean, you don't have a discrete graphics option in here. You're just running onboard graphics. The refresh rates are limited to 2, which is kind of interesting. 40 hertz and 60 hertz. That's it. I leave it at 60 hertz. As far as the keyboard goes, it's not too bad. It's not amazing. There's no backlighting on this one. I'm not a huge fan of the way they did the directional arrows down here. Outside of that, it's a fairly solid keyboard. It has a number pad, so it is pretty nice to actually have now multiple laptops that have built-in number pads due to their sizing. And oddly enough, even though there are a top row here with function keys, they did it backwards in my opinion. So if you were to hit, for example, F5, if you didn't hold the function button, it would actually mute the laptop. I would have much rather had it the other way, where if you hit F5, it just, does F5, and then if you hold function, it'll mute the laptop. The touchpad is also fairly nice. It's pretty big. It's pretty quiet, but it clicks all right. You only really get the clicks down here. Looking at it from backwards though, it does depress quite a bit. In terms of keyboard flex, there's not a whole lot, especially for how big this laptop is. So you know, I like it. It's definitely going to be just fine for what I'm going to use it for, which probably is something I should talk about because it's probably really ridiculous now that I have two laptops. But this laptop, essentially, I'm not going to take the Victus with me. Like, let's say I was going to travel somewhere. I would not take the Victus because I have like 3 drives connected to it, a microphone, all this nonsense. No, I'm not going to do that. I am going to take my little HP, they just call it an HP 17 laptop with me. You know, I have a wireless mouse in here. I have a couple extra USB ports, so if I needed to plug anything else in, I could. And then speaking of connectivity, it's fairly limited. On the right-hand side here, you have the power adapter. You have your one USB-A. The back has nothing. And then on the left-hand side, it's a little less limited, but you only have one USB, one HDMI, USB-C, and then your combined headphone jack. So this one takes the 4-pole headphone jacks where you can have the built-in mic. But the connectivity is a little limited compared to even my Victus. My Victus, I believe, has at least one more USB. Right now we're sitting at 3 total, and I believe my Victus has 4. So connectivity is a little limited. At least has HDMI. So if for some reason I wanted to plug it into something bigger. And now for the fun stuff. Even though I probably shouldn't have, I did bother benchmarking this thing. I know it's not going to do well. It has integrated graphics. So when it came to 3D Mark, I kept it very lightweight. You know, obviously things like Time Spy or Firestrike or any of those are going to absolutely destroy this little laptop's integrated graphics processor. So we kept it a little bit more lightweight and a little bit more manageable. I used some of the older ones. And I also did a Cinebench R23 run on single and multi-thread core. I was just curious how it, you know, how it ran compared to the Victus's CPU, because it is another generation ahead and it's using DDR5 inside of that computer. So I'll go ahead and I'll post the benchmarks. So honestly, those benchmarks aren't too bad in my opinion. This is a little integrated graphics laptop. I am not going to really rag on the performance that it gives me because it doesn't have a discrete, you know, graphics option. So I don't think the benchmarks are too bad, but I think we have to kind of put this into perspective. For about $230, would you rather have like an 11-inch Chromebook, which can do some things, but you're a little bit more limited, or would you rather have what is a much larger laptop that is in the Windows environment and you can do some slight upgrades to and overall have a pretty comfortable experience as long as you keep your expectations realistic? Personally, for me, I'm gonna be much more happy with the HP laptop than I would be with another Chromebook. So that is just my take on this particular HP laptop. I think for what I need it for, it's a pretty good value. As long as, like I said, you keep your expectations realistic. But this is my first official HP refurbished laptop and my first open box laptop that I bought from Micro Center. And the experience was great. I have no complaints. They even let me basically open this laptop and power it on in the Micro Center just to make sure everything was running and nothing was weird. So if you're in the market for like a budget laptop and you don't mind like lower specs because you're not going to be doing anything really like high-end or hardcore, take a look at these HP refurbished laptops. I don't think they're a bad deal. But again, that's just my opinion on it. Anyways, this video has gone on for a very long time, and I think I will wrap it up here. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this was an enjoyable watch, and you know, maybe you learned something about these HP laptops, or maybe you're going to go head down to your local Micro Center and take a look and see what they have in stock. But hopefully I will catch you guys in another video. Until then, take it easy. Bye-bye.